A colleague from the European Parliament said at our meeting in Finland, quote, Putin sees weakness as provocation. A question for you, Dr. Huebert. Do our adversaries see Canada as weak?
That's super easy to answer, of course.
That's for Dr. Huebert. We were up in Inuvik again with James Bazan this summer at the forward operating location. And what we didn't see was a busy construction site preparing those hangars that house the F-18 currently to house the F-35. F-35 capability is not only necessary for our own fleet, as you know, Doctor, but for our Southern NORAD allies and our NATO allies as well. Currently, we can't even land our air refueling tankers in Inuvik as the runway extension won't be ready until late 2027 and even maybe later. And it's at least $80 million over budget. A colleague from the European Parliament said at our meeting in Finland, quote, Putin sees weakness as provocation. A question for you, Dr. Huebert. Do our adversaries see Canada as weak?
That's super easy to answer, of course. I mean, consider this fact going through the element of Russian development of its Arctic security capabilities. Throughout the period of the post-Cold War, Russia's GDP roughly is in the ballpark of Canada's GDP. We get to the conversation of, look at the agony, and this committee dealt with it. I remember listening to the testimony from the former owner of the hangar up in Inuvik, and remember how we couldn't figure that out until the Japanese or the Chinese threatened to buy that hangar, and the Americans put pressure on us. We think in terms of what's happening in Nanisivik, and then compare and contrast to Russia. Now, how you count it, it varies, but there are about 22 Arctic bases that the Russians either built, revised, or extended. Now, again, the GDPs are hard to have any formal comparison, but we're not that far off in the ballpark. Remember, we were all part of the G8 at one point because we had similar economies. And so we come back to the fact that the Russians look at what they have and what they're capable of providing. They look at us and say, oh, look at Canada sitting on relatively similar resources and has done absolutely nothing and refuses to think about this issue. That's the critical point. We don't see anybody talking of the strategic rather than the technical or the in the weeds, as one of your colleagues put it. And so again, look at Russia in terms of what it did to Georgia, what it did to Ukraine in 2014, and I want to just hammer that point again. And so, well, what are they doing? And again, they've always acted whenever NATO has refused to take either Georgia or Ukraine in. So it's if they see a weak point, they will act. We know that. That's obvious to everybody.